Have you ever wondered why Egypt stopped growing the things it grew best? And if these plants fed a civilization, why aren't we growing them now? This, then, makes us wonder what else we have erased from history. Take Emma wheat, for example, also called decocum, or, more dramatically, Pharaoh's wheat. This was the grain of ancient Egypt. From the pre-dynastic days through the pharaonic era, this stuff fed the population, fueled ceremonies, and basically held society together. It wasn't native to Egypt, though. You see, Emma came from the Near East, domesticated thousands of years earlier, and then made its way into the Nile Valley around the 6th or 5th millennium BC. And once it arrived, it settled in for a long time. Egyptian farmers planted it using a technique called basin irrigation. Basically, you're taking advantage of the Nile's annual floods, then sowing seeds in the leftover mud. It's muddy, it's labor-intensive, but it works. Scenes of Emma harvests show up in tomb art from the Old Kingdom. And much later, the Romans, who were never ones to skip a good nickname, started calling it Pharaoh's wheat just to hammer home how dominant it had been. But for all its importance, Emma had issues. You see, it's not an easy grain to process. Even after threshing, its kernels stay wrapped in tough husks that don't want to let go. So, farmers had to go the extra mile to get to the actual grain. And despite all that, the ancient Egyptians had to put up with it. After all, Emma was reliable. And reliability, when your food supply is on the line, tends to win. Still, over time, that stubborn husk started to lose the popularity contest. Even so, Emma stuck around in daily life for a long time. Its flour, which was usually stone ground, was used to make rough, hearty bread. Yeah, it wasn't exactly soft sandwich slices, but it got the job done. And as you're well aware, back then, bread was currency. It was culture. And just so you know, some of that bread dough got crumbled and fermented into beer, which, if anything, was even more essential. Beer, after all, was also a ritual item, an offering, a staple at every level of society. That's why you see Emma loaves and beer jugs in temple scenes, tomb paintings, and religious texts from the Middle Kingdom right through the Ptolemaic period. In the records, Emma shows up under names like aged tea or Olyra, a gesture to its long service as ration grain and temple tribute. What's more is that Emma's byproducts were also put to good use. Indeed, straw, chaff, they were used as animal fodder and mixed into mud brick for building. And thanks to Egypt's dry climate, Emma flour stored well. It had a nutty, earthy flavor that some people still preferred, even when newer wheat types showed up, especially for brewing. Taste mattered there. But, like you guessed, change was coming. You see, after the New Kingdom, Emma began to slip from the spotlight. By the Greco-Roman period, other wheats like durum and bread wheat had taken over. Basically, they were naked wheats. They didn't have any stubborn husks. All you had to do was thresh, then grind, and voila, done. Much easier on the back and the schedule. Classical writers still mention Egyptians using Emma for bread, but it wasn't the norm anymore. Studies even show that after Roman times, Emma nearly disappeared from the Nile Valley. We can assume it's due to better yields, faster processing, changing tastes, new baking styles, and importantly, policies under the Ptolemies and Romans that favored grains like barley and free-threshing wheats. And by late antiquity, emmer was all but gone from Egyptian fields. It held on a little longer in isolated areas, places like Ethiopia and Yemen. But in Egypt, the age of Pharaoh's wheat was over. And the grain that once fed gods, kings, and commoners alike became just another footnote in the long history of human agriculture. But while emmer was dying out, something sweeter was getting ready to take its place. That's right. We're talking about the sycamore fig. You see, in ancient Egypt, this tree actually meant something. They called it the Tree of Life. Sacred to Hathor, Lady of the Sycamore. It's native to Africa, but Egyptians started growing it around 3000 BC, maybe from southern Africa, maybe the Levant, or maybe it just showed up and stayed. But once it was cultivated in Egypt, it flourished, especially near the Nile and in oases. Hot, dry weather? No problem. It grew 15 to 20 meters tall, with a wide, shady crown. And by the Old Kingdom, people planted it near homes and farms, likely from cuttings. Because here's the twist. It can't self-pollinate in Egypt. Unlike the other figs, the sycamore fig needs a specific wasp to ripen fruit. But that wasp doesn't live there. So what did farmers do? They stabbed the figs. That tiny wound triggered ethylene, a ripening hormone. Problem solved. Figs ripened. No wasps needed. And just like that, a sacred tree fed body and spirit. Tomb paintings show workers up in trees, slicing figs. Greek and Roman writers noticed too. The fruit looks a bit like a small, beat-up fig, yellowish, sometimes with a pink blush when ripe. It grows right on the trunk and big branches, like it doesn't care about rules. The skin's thin, but a little leathery, though you can eat it raw, but it's not winning any flavor contests. And is it sweet? Well, kind of, in a plain, mealy way. Some say it tastes like a fig that got watered down too much. Others say it's better after it's bruised or cut. But like we said, when it's ripe, the inside can look juicy and reddish, like a watered-down cousin of the common fig. And if you're hungry, it'll do what it had been doing for thousands of years. It fills you up. One handful can keep you going for hours. It's the kind of fruit you eat because you have to, not because you want to. Still, it's hard not to respect it. Poor families ate them fresh or dried. Even babies got mashed figs early on. But you know, the tree gave a lot more than fruit. For instance, its latex treated skin problems. Its leaves and bark were used in poultices or fed to animals. And it played a deeper role. In myths, Hathor or Nut arose from a sycamore to feed souls in the afterlife. Tomb art shows them offering figs and water, symbols of rebirth. Even more, temples and burial sites often planted sycamores nearby, especially in Heliopolis. It also gave Egypt something rare: local wood. Light and soft, easy to shape, used for coffins, furniture, or even statues. By the Middle Kingdom, 60% of coffins were sycamore. So yes, people were literally buried in fig trees. But most native trees didn't grow that big. The sycamore tree, however, filled the gap. But in the end, it didn't last. The fig wasp, the tiny insect that pollinated Egypt's sycamore fig, vanished. Probably sometime in the late medieval period, though no one wrote down the exact day. And so, no wasp meant no pollination, and no pollination meant no seeds. And the old method, the one where people gashed the fruit to trick it into ripening, that was forgotten too. Figs, in general, didn't disappear entirely, but the sycamore fig stopped spreading on its own. The tree doesn't make proper seeds anymore, at least not viable ones. So, if you want one now, you have to clone it. Literally, cut a branch and root it. Still, the tree lives on, culturally. It became a symbol of ancient Egypt, a living link to the past. And while its role has died out, there's no official plan to bring it back. No rescue project, no national fig revival. Other fruit trees, such as grapes, dates, and citrus, have filled the gap. They're sweeter and easier to cultivate, and no tiny wasp required. As for the wood, imported woods like cedar and teak replaced sycamore for building. By the 20th century, only a few hundred of these trees were left throughout Egypt. Once, however, they were found in every village. Like the Virgin's tree in Matariah, which is believed to have provided shade, shelter, and food to the Virgin Mary and her son as they traveled through the area. And so, with no use and no meaning, the tree disappeared. And in the end, these forgotten crops shaped a world. Then the world moved on. But maybe, just maybe, they're still waiting to grow again. So, what else have we left behind that we still need?